Very good.
Yeah? Welcome back, everybody. Tijn, first impressions as a former old FTC student.
Yeah, one of the best games I've ever seen, I think, in FTC. Getting some real Ultimate Ascent vibes of the 2013 FRC game, so I think it's going to be really, really fun to watch.
I think as well. I think there's a lot of possibilities for teams to be exciting, creating exciting robot. If you have any questions, let us know. I saw one question in Slack, where the game manual at. We just heard that it will be published at a certain time. We don't know when.
We're assuming 7 or 8.
Yeah, so probably within 10 minutes or an hour and 10 minutes, hopefully. But if you have any specific questions, we already read the game manual. So if you have any specific questions, Tijn is our specialist that can help you answer them. Tijn, why is there no water game? Laurens asks.
I think that would be too tough on the rookies, and we wouldn't want to see so many burn-through robots because of water damage.
First of all, I thought the game pieces would be solid plastic, but they actually turn out to be foam.
Yeah.
How would you handle shooting or throwing something from foam?
Yeah, it's going to be very different from if it was hard plastic, because now instead of having soft wheels for the hard plastic, you'll have to have hard wheels for the soft plastic. You might have to look in how much squish you can give it before it starts randomizing in which direction it shoots. It's going to be a lot of trial and error before you find out how you can handle these well.
And are there any old FTC or FRC games that you think that are interesting for this game?
So I already mentioned Ultimate Ascent, which was similar to this, but it was with hard plastic frisbees. But what would also maybe be an interesting game to look into is either Stronghold from 2016. This was an FRC game. They didn't play with discs, but they did play with foam balls. And yet last year's game, Infinite Recharge, had a similar style. There we have one of the frisbees of 2013. So in 2013 you were shooting these kind of frisbees, full court, say if you were good at it. And what we saw a lot was that robots had a lot of advantage of shooting from a fixed position on the field. This means they bump into the backboard or into a pyramid that was on the field at the time and use that to align and shoot always at the same spot.
So you think that will be interesting for this year's FTC game as well?
Yeah, I think that would give you a lot of advantage. Aiming by yourself is going to be very tough, and even aiming on vision has a lot of movement in it, and it's going to be hard to make sure that you always hit your target. So if you're on a fixed position in the field, that's going to increase your odds by a lot, I think.
Okay, let's check if there are any new questions in the Google app.
No.
A non-game related question was from Mark Salzberg. How do I know as a team if my registration is done? Our team already pre-registered, so do we need to re-register? We will publish registration info in the upcoming newsletter, and you have to be ready for the 1st of October, and then you have 2 weeks to completely register your team. So if you're already pre-registered for now, that's fine, just hold on tight until you get more notice and more information on how to register officially.
Yeah, I see Rob has sent the game animation for Ultimate Ascent in the Slack, so everyone that's in the Slack already and everyone that isn't in there, probably a good idea to get in there and take a look at some old game footage.
Also interesting to check robots from that year, because as you can see, the game element from 2013 was also flat and round, and they managed to pick them up from the floor. I don't know, do you think it's viable this year? Do you need to have a floor pickup, or would you mainly focus on getting the game elements, rings from the human player?
It depends. There's a real advantage to being able to get them from the floor, but as a first step I would start with just a human player station filler, and if you have that done in time, see if you can make the switch to having also a floor pickup. But my advice would be start with the easy things and then work from there. always better to have a robot that works good at a few things than have a robot that works really bad at all of the things.
And what are easy things in your opinion, or what would you start with first?
A handling of the wobble goal is something that I think all teams will be able to do, and seeing if you can just grab onto it and pull it around on the field is step one, and then maybe see if you can get it to go over the wall to score points in endgame, or extra points in endgame, I must say.
Nice. Any things yourself?
Yeah,
Questions?
it's
Things
going
that pop up?
it's going to be a really interesting game. I think the referees are going to have a tough time, but we have very good referees here in the Netherlands, so that will be fine. But it's a tough game. I think it's the toughest game we've seen as well in the last couple of years. So it's the most fun, but versus the hardest fun you've ever had, I guess. But it's going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to it.
I think personally I didn't expect the detailed questions and answers from first on the game reveal and showing the real field. So that's definitely has covered quite a lot of questions, I think, from you already. There are a couple people typing right now, so let's hold on.
Right. Maybe there's some people that have more questions about the remote event version. They went into that a little bit, but they didn't even have the field up, so maybe there's some more detailed questions about how that would look.
Several people are typing. Where and when can we order the wobbles?
So I assume that if not now, they'll be on AnyMark any second now.
Yeah, so AnyMark is the official supplier for field elements and game elements. For the league meet locations, there is a complete field ordered. So there will be several locations in the Netherlands that have access to a field. And if you want to order something yourself, definitely AnyMark is the way to go. And if you're going to order at AnyMark, I would highly advise instead of paying straight away with a credit card or an invoice, under purchase options, you can request a purchase order, which is like a pro forma factuur invoice. And then in the comments, you can ask for a shipping revision by Mary Baker, M-A-R-Y. Baker, B-A-K-E-R, and she does international orders as well. And usually when they look into the FedEx shipping rates personally, you get a better price because the shipping prices online are based on a volume weight format. And if you buy an entire game set, that's a huge volume or a huge amount. And then usually when they redo the shipping calculation manually, you're a little bit cheaper off. So definitely try to get information from it. If you're looking into buying, I would also make sure that you post it on Slack, and maybe you can combine a shipment with different teams, because it always saves time and money if you can combine different orders with multiple teams together.
I see a question in the Twitch channel. First of all, for the other person asking, yes, you can also ask them in the Twitch channel. So do you need to shoot a ring to those middle targets, the power shot targets, or can you use something different to hit them from a distance? No, you have to shoot it with the rings, and that means you also have to be fully behind the aiming line. So that means it's a very, very tough part of the challenge, I think.
And can you put one of the rings on the pole of the wobble goal after you placed the wobble goal outside of the field perimeter?
I'm not exactly sure, so I'm going to check it up, but I think not.
I highly doubt as well that it's allowed. So, plus I think it's definitely easier to put them on when you have the wobble goal inside the perimeter after placing it. So if you're looking for an easier challenge, I would vote for putting them on before you place the wobble goal. But we'll check, and otherwise, if it's not answered in the manual, you can ask me on the Q&A forum of FTC as well.
No, so rule 5.4 states in the wobble goal rings part, it says any wobble goal location. Oh no, that's for the points. Never mind.
And is there a penalty? What is the penalty for scoring a ring while outside the launch zone? So if you're not in the launch zone and scoring a ring, what is the penalty?
Okay, the penalty for that's easier to look up. So that'll be in game-specific rules. That's a major penalty per ring, so that comes down to, I think, 25 points. Let me see.
Now I get your question, Elisa. Elisa from Casimir Tech asked, what happens if you knock down the opponent's middle targets, so the 3 pipes next to these slots where you can shoot in the rings? If I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, whenever I am the Red Alliance and I shoot a ring and I shoot over one of the blue pipes, it will count as a score for them. So I'm not getting a penalty because I'm touching their game scoring element, but they receive points for having it knocked over.
That's entirely correct. That's for most of the things in this game. If you score in your opponent's goal because the rings are fully neutral, that means that you're scoring for your opponent.
For the Tommies, I don't know how heavy a wobble goal is. Maybe it's in the. I think it's the web page for ordering field elements is already online at AnyMark, and usually they specify product specifications on their website. So maybe the weight of the wobble goal is specified at AnyMark.
Right. So the major penalties, that's in the game manual, and I haven't read that today.
Okay, and as Stijn posted, game manual part 2 is already online right now, so it was at 7 o'clock. So the link is also shared in Slack as well, and it's also online ready. Bram asks from the Encrypted Gentleman, may you throw 3 rings at once?
Yes, there's no rule that denies you the choice to shoot at the same time, so you can have a maximum of 3 rings, but how you release them again is fully up to you.
And until what point are they counted as my possession?
So this is a really interesting question. So rings are counted as your possession until the moment that it hits another thing. So that means that if you're shooting 3 rings and at the same time you're grabbing a ring, that means you'll be getting penalties because the rings will still be in the air, not having hit your target yet. That means at the time you grab the 4th ring, you have 4 rings in your possession.
And how close can you stand in front of the return shoot? So I think it means robot-wise.
As far as I know, you can just basically drive all the way up to there. It is specified that you can't block the way for other people, but if you have a valid reason to be there to get those rings, I assume you can legally get a stand there.
And do you know when exactly the SDK will be released?
I'm not sure, but I've been told by Jesse earlier that it's really oftentimes released relatively soon after the kickoff, so I would assume somewhere next week.
Okay. A question from Pink to the Future. Are closed loops already illegal? And maybe, or I could as well elaborate on what a closed loop would mean.
Yeah, so a closed loop is a scenario in which you score rings and immediately after they are returned on the field, they come back into your robot, so you can score them immediately again. I think almost by definition this is illegal unless you're scoring them in the logo, because it means you'll have a part of your robot over the line while shooting. Otherwise you can't have it immediately fall back into your robot. As for in the logo, this is an early interpretation and I hope we'll be getting an update. I think it would be illegal because you're denying other robots access to these rings, but I'm not sure at this moment.
Plus, it maybe would be that if you have something if you're a closed loop robot, it means that you're in the launch zone and in the other zone. So
Yeah.
maybe you would get a penalty if you score from the launch zone. Plus, if your robot is still in the
That's what I meant in the
phase.
beginning.
Yeah.
But in the logo, you can score by just driving up there and putting it in. So you maybe would be able to get a closed loop system there, but I think in that case it might be legal.
And if you shoot a ring, is it okay for the robot to be on the line of the launch zone, or does it need the robot to be completely over the
If I'm
launch zone?
remembering correctly, yes, the launch zone has been specified as being part of the line in this case.
Okay.
I think Yes is trying to get in. Yes.
Oh.
Yes has found out how doors work.
Congratulations, Jesse. Yeah, so usually with does my Nito robot be in the entire zone? Most of the seasons, you could say that a tape has a vertical plane, invisible vertical plane upwards, and whenever your robot crosses the vertical plane, it would mean that you're in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
But that might be something you have to look into for the game manual as well.
Yeah, so that's correct for in this case, and I looked it up to confirm, and it says the part of the playing field bounded by the front wall, blue lines wall, red lines wall, and the launch line. The launch line is considered to be part of the launch zone. So
Okay, but does your robot need to be completely over the launch zone line?
No, so you have to be completely in the launch zone. That means that you can still be on the line, but you have to be completely at least on the line or over.
Yeah, so I cannot park in front of the goal and have an arm extend across the line and then shoot in the higher goal.
No, that's indeed that's illegal. It's specified in the rules that accidental being partly in outside of the launch zone that doesn't give you any advantage is sometimes allowed. But I think for this you would be looking at loose wire that's being dragged behind your robot, not for something that's extending and getting rings in.
And what's going to happen with rings when you somehow shoot them the wrong way out or when they exit the field perimeter?
So this is something I also have to look up, but generally speaking in FTC games, if rings are, or if game elements are accidentally gotten out of the field, they are being put back in by referees. But it's also specified that if you're shooting rings at any place except for the tower wall, this gives you a minor penalty for every ring that leaves the field.
Yeah, and I think when they are ejected out of the field perimeter, they would go to the human player and then they would get back into the stage there?
I'll look into this to find out exactly, but normally speaking, it's just the referee puts it back in at the closest point where it left. But I'll look it up.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, so on the Google Slides questions, there was a question from Brent, but we already covered it as well. If you shoot a ring, is it okay for the robot to be on the line of the launch zone?
That was okay.
Yeah, but your robot needs to be fully
on the line or further.
Yeah. So your robot needs to be past the line, but it can still be on, as long as none of your robot parts are outside the launch zone. Any other questions?
Yeah.
When exactly does the human player have to reset those push ticks? So the 3 pipes next to the slots where you can score the rings, you have 2 moments you can score those pipes targets in the game, which is during autonomous and during endgame, and they can be resetted during teleoperated. So in the first 30 seconds?
The first 2 minutes of
Autonomous?
autonomous are no, the first 1.5 minute of autonomous teleop can be used to reset the power shot targets again. It does specify that in unusual events you can still do it up till 10 seconds into endgame, and it doesn't mean you're scoring double. That means that if by accident you hit it 1 second before endgame begins, you still have the chance to reset it so that during endgame you can score these targets.
Are you allowed to launch the wobble goal away from the field?
No, you're not allowed to launch the wobble goal at all. This means that you can't push it over the field real quickly and have it move 1.5 meter without you having to drive your way there yourself. You actually have to drag or push it, or in event of putting it in a drop zone, you'll have to go over and put it down carefully.
And as Irene mentioned on Slack as well, Game Manual 1 is updated currently as well with Chapter 9. So all the new information regarding to the judging format, engineering notebook portfolio, etc. is all covered in Chapter 9 of Game Manual 1. So please make sure to read everything in there as well, not just only focus on the game.
Yeah, so I checked up on the question earlier where rings that are accidentally shot come back, and it's G27 says that indeed it goes back at the place where it left the field at the earliest convenient moment. This means that if it goes all the way over the hull, it might not be convenient for a referee to go get it at all.
And if you shoot them out intentionally, you can get a penalty and or even rules about aggressive behavior, not being gracious professionalism, etc. So it can happen maybe once, maybe twice, but if you consistently do it, it will definitely get you a penalty.
Yeah, especially if you're aiming at something.
Yeah. Any other questions? I see that we have 267 members in the general channel and we only had a few questions. There can also be questions about the game format or league meets upcoming. Doesn't have to be exactly game related. Can be everything. Can be personal question for Tijn as well.
Good to hear that you're not into my personal life, guys.
Question from Rens. When exactly does a human player have to reset those push ticks? Oh, this on
We
the same
already
question.
answered that, but as
Yeah,
a repeat, you have to do that anywhere during teleop before endgame begins, and in problematic situations, you even have 10 seconds into endgame to put it.
Yeah, and a question from Nigel: are the locations of the league meets known already? They were originally for the originally planned dates, but those were in November, December. But we're delaying and extending the season right now. So we had a meeting with all the possible league meet partners from recent seasons, and we're checking agendas and schedules from each league meet partner. And depending on the official dates, we'll communicate the league meet locations. So for now, no, they're not yet known, but they will be announced later on. As Ganske mentioned, you should have listened to the general presentation, but maybe you weren't there. Question for you, Tijn, as one of the head referees. Is Roel going to use his referee flag again?
So I think we can confirm at this time that Roel will obsessively be using his flag again.
Yeah, and maybe you can demonstrate, especially for the rookies, how a tomahawk chop countdown would happen.
A tomahawk chop happens in situations where you can get penalties after a specified amount of time. So for example, if you had 4 rings in your system, you'll get a minor penalty, major penalty maybe even to begin with, and then every 5 seconds another minor. that will look like this. I'll point at your robot, wave the flag of your alliance color, and then I'll start tomahawk counting down. So I'll do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then I'll wave your flag again and I'll start counting it down again, as long as you have the 4 rings in your session.
Highly recommended you do it once during a practice match, just to see if the referees practiced their tomahawk chops good enough in the off season.
Yeah, it's been tough with Corona that we didn't have the gym to go to and practice, but we have a home setup now.
Yeah. Okay.
What if a ring bounces out somehow? That's an interesting question. So I think for the rules, it doesn't specify that it has to come out at the field, and it just says once it is in the goal that it's point. But it's going to be something that's hard to referee, and I'll double check what happens. But I think it's still points as long as you get it into the goal.
Well, I would say we give you all 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
5 more minutes, and if we don't receive any more questions within those 5 minutes, we'll be shutting down the live stream, but we'll still be available on Slack to answer any questions you have after the live stream. So if you have anything to ask, you better do it right now. Can you get 5 points for bringing the wobble to the start, plus 20 for getting it over the wall?
No, this is one of the points that you can only get at the end of the game. This means that even if you bring it to the line for any given moment during the game, even during the end game, and it's later removed from that line, it doesn't give you any points. So you can't put it there and then afterwards put it over to the drop zone.
So the scoring for the wobble goal will be determined on the location where the wobble goal is located after the match is done.
Yeah.
A question from Bram. So you may put rings on the wobble thing from anywhere in the field?
You can do it anywhere in the field. I assume easiest to just drive up to it, but if you want to do full court shots onto the wobble, will be my guest, I guess.
It doesn't matter where the wobble is then.
No, it doesn't matter. You can score them anywhere, so you can drag it out of the launch zone and score there. That's fine.
There's a question about the orange blanket. Maybe you should explain it to the rookie teams. What's that all about?
Oh, for safety, you mean?
Yeah.
So a question from Rob. Will the orange blanket be used again? For those that don't remember the orange blanket, during the events, you'll have to be wearing safety glasses. You need to be operating your robot safely in the pit. Whenever you disobey the rules that are outlined by first, which we will communicate as well for our own events, you'll get a warning or a penalty if you're working unsafely on your robot within the pit area. And if you don't listen to our warning, you get the chance that you'll be penalized with an orange blanket, which any of the volunteers at the event are allowed to use, which basically means you get a 5-minute time penalty. So we will cover your robot in your pit or wherever you're working unsafely with an orange blanket, and it is not our responsibility if you miss a match because of it. So if you're scheduled to play at 11:15 and we put a blanket over your robot at 11:12, it's your own responsibility that you've missed the match, because you probably won't be in time to work on your robot. So working safely with safety glasses is a priority and a must, and we will keep on continuing using this rule for this season.
So to come back to the earlier question about if it bounces back, I can't find anything about it. So, what you have found? Oh, it doesn't count. I'm being told. I can.
It's on page. I don't see a page number on it.
It's somewhere in there, but we'll get back to you with a page
It's in
number.
the description, section 4.
Section 4.
Tower goal.
Tower goal. It's in there apparently. So another question I see here: does the wobble have to be exactly on the line, or is there some kind of maximum offset? No, it has to be exactly on the line. So that means we'll extend like a zone above the line, but it has to be on there.
And does a team have to make or buy their own orange blanket in case of remote events?
No, we have virtual orange blankets that you can put over your roll.
But we highly encourage you buy or bring your own orange blanket. Yeah.
So I see here: does your team get points if the other team hits you with a ring? In a way, I guess the penalty points will help you out, but it's not added to your score. So no, actually not.
Okay. Do you know why there is a HDMI port on the control hub?
No,
Yeah, there was.
I think
I assume it's for video transfer.
I think Bas also answers it.
Yeah.
That was one of the troubles with the expansion hub, because there is software on the expansion hub and the control hub which is running to make sure that you are able to troubleshoot problems with it. And as far as I can recall, and that's what Bas says as well, it's for you that you can hook up a monitor to your control hub, and if there is a specific error or it's not working anymore, or if you need to do some troubleshooting with your control hub, it's easier to hook up a monitor to it and actually dive into the code and stuff. But that would mainly be for serviceability and fixing issues.
Alright, I see here another question. Can you snatch those block flying rings from the other team? No, the rules are quite specific about this. Once a ring is higher than 18 inches from the ground, you can no longer block it. So that means if they're shooting for an eye target, you can't grab it from the air.
How many points is power shots in Telio?
It's 15 points. It's the same as in the tournaments.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the pipes and the targets, etc. Those are called power shots. And I think we already answered the question from Bart. Is it possible to, in the end game, first place the wobble thing, then start on the start line and then place it over the wall? That's what we answered earlier. The location of the wobble goal at the end of the match will determine of how many points it will receive. So if you put it over the perimeter at the end of the game, that's where you get scoring points for. If it's on the starting line, that's where you get points for. So if you do it consecutively after each other, that won't give you any added value. Die snatch had jij gedaan. And René, thanks for the compliment for hosting this kickoff. It was an honor. It's a different setup than we're used to, but it's definitely good to see the numbers on the Twitch stream of everybody watching and having these types of interactions within Slack. And it definitely at least gives me, and I bet everybody here, a positive vibe, knowing that everybody's as active as they are right now. And it will be interesting for us to keep on continuing with these types of initiatives for this season to make sure we kind of see and especially interact with each other. I think that's it. Those were all the questions. If you have any other questions, you know how to get in the Slack channel. If you're not in there yet, send an email to info@ftcnetherlands.eu. And if you have any other questions, put them in Slack, and then I think we'll wrap off the live stream. But we'll do a quick wave with everybody who was here.
Zoom out maybe?
Bye, see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ja, helemaal uitgezoomd.
Ja, nu is alleen
Okay,
een
that's
beeld.
good.
Kom
Let's go. Ah!
op!